Mm.
Awesome. So I am here today with Tracey Mitchell, and I'm so excited to have you as my first official guest on the podcast. I literally could not think of another person I wanted to have as my first guest because I had so much fun chatting with you on your podcast with the episode that we did. And I just loved the easy flow of our chat, and I couldn't think of anyone else that I wanted. So
Oh, well,
I'm very
thank you,
thankful.
Megan. Yes, that's a real honor. I really enjoyed getting to know you during the my podcast episode there on hitting your stride, and yeah, I'm really enjoying what you're doing with the equestrians in biz, and of course what you're doing with your movement connections. So I am honored to be your first guest. This will be fun.
One of the things I love about your perspective, especially with the horse world, is you touch on so many different areas. So you have your equine massage business, you have your equestrian element, your life coaching, you have your podcast where you get to talk to a whole bunch of really neat people in the industry. So it's really fun to talk to someone who has so many different outlooks and so many different roles in the horse world. So
Yeah, well, thank you. And it's kind of funny until you have someone actually tell you all that, and it's like, holy crap, that's a lot.
it is a lot. It was a lot. When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I was like, oh, we could talk about like horse body work. We could talk about this. There's so many different avenues that you've been a part of. It's fun to have so many different
Well,
to choose from.
yeah, you ask away. Just,
Cool.
I'm an open book. Let's do this.
I love it. So anything in particular you want to say about yourself, your role in the horse world, in your life coaching business, anything in particular you want to start off with?
Oh boy. As far as anything in particular, I'm not sure if this is like, do you want me to introduce myself to your
Yeah,
people or?
however you would like to be introduced.
Well, yep, I have been in the equine industry, like, like every little girl, you start your riding lessons when you're 7 and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I grew up dabbling in some of the hunter jumper stuff, but I found my love with dressage, and I've done some showing and some training, and I've had some really great experiences with that over the years. And then, yeah, I got into what was at the time the Darcy Lane Institute, the DAL School of Equine Massage Therapy, that opened up in January of 1997. And I was the September class to join that in 1997. So the second class to ever go through. And yeah, it was kind of fun. I was greeted with a lot of, well, you can't do that. And what kind of a job is that going to be? You can't make a living. And so, yes, I very quickly showed them all that I could. But yes, there was a lot. And I think one of the questions you're going to ask me, I'll touch on, what it kind of has taken for me to now be in my 25th year of doing this. And I also had the love and the joy of teaching out of the DAL program for 14 years. And yeah, so there's that. And then obviously the life coaching, and out of the life coaching grew the podcast. And I seem to be one of those people, and I don't know, I love ideas. I love collaborating. And when you sit down and you start coming up, it's like, gee, well, I could do that. Or, hey, that's a cool idea. And sometimes I'm like, all right, Mitchell, just rein it in a little bit, maybe kind of thing. But I don't know. I get excited about doing things and sharing ideas and stuff. So yeah, this is why I'm happy to share and be here with you.
I love that. So yes, as you alluded, one of the things I wanted to chat about is what inspired the transition to work as a life coach.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it so much a transition because I'm still very actively
Yeah.
massaging as a registered equine massage therapist. And funnily enough, last year was a record year. Like it was crazy. And I'm kind of like going, what the heck is going on? Because you think at some point in time, the R word and retirement might be in my future, but it's not seeming that anytime soon anyway. But just like most people, COVID was the kicker that I didn't want to just be sitting at home here doing nothing when I couldn't get into the barns. And I've always been somebody that people like to go to talk to about stuff. And I've really cherished that. I think that's so, like, I'm approachable. I love to help people. And I think along with that, I've always been a student of myself.
Mhm.
So I've really, through challenging, difficult times in life, you know, you need a little extra help. So you go to therapy, you go to talk therapy, you find these people that can help you sort of undo some of those things in the past and may help you look at them in a different way. And so I've learned a lot about myself over all these years. And the life coaching was something like, it's kind of interesting because it's not what goes on in the past, but what do you want to do looking ahead? So that has been a lot of fun for me. And it's so yeah, the counseling is dealing with your past, life coaching is dealing with the future. And yeah, I like looking ahead. I like learning from what life has taught me and some of the challenges that I've experienced, and perhaps share that and pay it forward so maybe someone else can learn something.
I think that's a really cool way to look at it. So as someone who's done a fair amount of therapy, yes, we're talking mainly about how the past is kind of equaled up to current actions. But yeah, I really love that of what path can we go forward and what that looks like and how to get there. That's
Yeah. And it's not that the past doesn't come into play, because oftentimes in whatever situation any of my life coaching clients are dealing with, they have an existing blueprint
yes.
or a foundation from experiences already had. But I'm not a counselor, right? So if there's anything serious there, please, you know, go talk to someone else. I can help you find someone if that's the case. But if you're excited about wanting to start a new business, or, you know, setting up your goals or organizing your life, I love that kind of stuff.
I love this segue. This is why I was like, oh, she's going to be such a fun first guest because she'll just kind of roll into it. So, next question. What advice would you give someone just starting off in their equine business?
Whew, this one kind of gives me shivers. I got goosebumps here when you asked me this one. It's such a loaded question, and it's hard. Like, I want to be realistic about this. In the like the equestrian industry is its own thing, right? On its own machine, on its own. And I found, like, so let's say 25 years ago when I started out in the massage therapy, um, it was there, but it wasn't really, really well known. There had to be a lot of education and putting myself out there. I think the hardest thing is that there will be sacrifices that need to be made. And you have to, this is my favorite saying, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to understand that these moments that make your stomach do flip-flops, or your hands start to sweat, or you're still like, all of those scary things, like you will not be successful unless you have the ability to push yourself. um yeah, and it's okay, sort of like, and here's the other thing. Don't be afraid to look at the challenging stuff, right? Have conversations with people who have been there, done that. Hopefully you're talking to somebody who appreciates, you know, the whole concept of paying it forward and helping someone learn. I do love that. But yeah, get comfortable hearing the stuff that you don't want to hear.
Mhm.
Yeah, and doing the things that you don't necessarily want to do. And if it's something that needs to be done for your business to be successful, then figure it out, learn about it, ask all sorts of questions. Don't rely on Google or the internet, right? Reach out and have conversations with people who are willing to share their experience and advice. And I don't know, there's probably a bazillion stories that I could share about, you know, those moments where, like, oh man, do I get to rest? Nope, not yet. And, you know, I was fortunate or unfortunate enough, because one of your other questions touches on the other side of it. But I mean, my dad was a self-employed individual, and I witnessed what he sacrificed for our family. And that was not always a good thing, right? Because there's a price to be paid for that when he was away from home all the time. But at the same point in time, I learned what work ethic was. And I learned, you know, to follow through with things that I love to do. And even if I don't love them, I have to get real with them. So
Yes.
that's probably the biggest part there.
It's such I've talked to a few individuals looking to jump into an equine business, and it's in talking to them, it's so hard because I'm like, the first couple of years, like you have to kind of be the yes person. Like you think you're in control of your hours and all this. And yes, you are to a certain extent. But for the first little bit, in order to grow, you need to be available. Like I used to work from 5 a.m. until like 9:30 p.m. some days doing split shifts. But I couldn't say no. I had to pay bills. I had to do this. I had to build my name. And eventually, as the years went on, then I was like, oh, I'm not 18 anymore. And I can't do this. And I was more at liberty to be like, that 5:30 a.m. time, that's not going to work for me anymore. And they either were like, okay, what other time do you have available? Because they wanted to continue, or they're like, okay, then I'll move on. But every time someone moved on, I had a really cool new person kind of come in. And like, it's so cool how that works, where you're so hesitant to make that jump of like, this is safe, this is comfortable, but then all these new opportunities come in with the space that you have available. And it's so cool.
Yeah, there's so much there. I mean, what was the first thing that you said? Oh yeah, like 3 to 5 years to build a good business.
Yeah.
Right. And it was honestly at the 5 year mark, I'm like, all right, I'm not working Sundays anymore. I don't care. If there was a big horse show I was at and clients were in that Sunday class, yes, of course I would be there because I would want to be there. But there were certain boundaries and lines that needed to be drawn. So yeah, it is really challenging. And the other thing I think to be careful of, because when you first start out, it's really easy to think tight the way you kind of described it, right? Like I've got to be someone for everyone and I've got to make everybody happy. And if you can learn from the experience, then we'll tell you it's never going to happen. Just be
Exactly.
who you are. You'll
Yeah.
attract the people that you want in your life as your clients. And then, yeah, it probably took to me, I don't know, like 10, 12 years ago, where I'm like, all right, when one client may leave for whatever reason, there's no reason to panic. It will, that spot will be filled up before you know it. That's the whole manifestation, and what you think, what you focus on grows. So you just have to be really in tune with what you want and not worry about what you think everybody else is thinking or wanting.
100%. It's
Yeah,
hard. And
it
I
is.
also feel like that, like, I'm sure someone told me that when I started, and it kind of like, I feel like for me personally, anyways, that was something I had to figure out for myself to have. I don't do very well with being told things. I
So you
like
like to be in
myself.
charge.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I'll own that. But yeah, that was definitely one I had to figure out for myself of, yeah, yeah, you figure it out, you learn. And what worked for me isn't necessarily going to work for someone else either. So
Exactly.
I can give you all the advice that I think I learned from my experience, but that might not necessarily apply to someone else's situation.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a learning curve.
Yeah. So as you alluded to, what are some of the things you do to prevent burnout? Because like we said, you have a lot going on.
I do. And that's still hard. It's
Yeah.
it's like I think people like us, and by that I mean, entrepreneurial type, that kind of thing. Um, it gets challenging because, like I described, I love to do things and I have these ideas and I'm passionate about what I do. But as I've gotten older, yes, you've got to watch your energy. You've got to not forget that there is a life outside of what or who we are, right? So I'm more than an REMT. I'm more than a life coach. I have a life and friends and all that kind of stuff. I think the biggest thing, and it seems so simple, but it's had the biggest effect on me, is just learning to rest.
Yeah.
Like, and it doesn't have to be a lot. Like when I get home from, I don't know, maybe say a total of 4 hours of driving and maybe like 5 massages or something like that, and I get home, and the cats are happy to see me, and the husband's happy to see me, and I'm like, okay, guys, I'm just gonna go get out of these work clothes and I'm just gonna go lay down on the bed for 15 minutes and just lay there and pat the cats or whatever, but I'm just maybe close my eyes, but
Yeah.
it doesn't even have to be that, right? There's just
Depression.
something.
Yeah.
Decompression, yeah. And it's, I don't know, thinking a little bit more about me,
Hmm.
which might sound awfully selfish now that I hear myself saying that. But isn't it funny? Because especially when people like myself and you and others listening to this podcast who are in a position of service, it's one of the hardest things to learn to do is to put yourself first because you end up completely burnt out. So I'm being maybe say a little bit more careful about how jam-packed I make my schedule, trusting that I don't need to fit it all into 1 week or 2 weeks. It's okay to kind of lay things out a little bit more. I obviously go for, massages and osteo. And so physically, it's really important, especially after all these times. I think God gave me the ability to do this work for, it's a very dynamic job massaging horses. And I think I had a little bit of tendonitis in my left elbow back in 2006. So knock on wood, I'm doing okay. And I
Good.
think it's because I take my mechanics when I'm working very seriously, and I take my my self-care super seriously. And I think when I was teaching, I didn't even have the longevity of or experience of longevity to share at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really tried to nail it home to the students. It's like, yeah, you have to look after yourself. So I don't know. I think, yeah, you just don't have to be everything to everybody. Just kind of figure out how you want to be, set your boundaries. That's a big one.
Yeah. I think figuring out like what lifestyle ends up working for you, what working hours end up working for you. And this is where like I cannot imagine working 9 to 5. I would that but I can work split shifts where most people hear about some of the hours that I work and they're like, oh my God, how do you do that? And I'm like, it works for me.
So explain for me a split shift. What do you mean by
Split
that?
shift is I will start work at 7:30 in the morning. I'll work until 11:30, 12. I then have most of the afternoon to go see my horse in the daytime, walk the dogs, sit down and read if I want to. And then I start up again at like 3, 3:30, and I work until 8:30. So
Yeah.
that used to be the bulk of my practice as I've gotten older. And not that I'm old, just not 18. I'm like, oh, that's a little rough. Working that many evenings is not working
Right.
for me. So it's taken me a very long time to see like, okay, 2 split shifts a week and then half days. I call half days 6 hours of work, but my
Yep.
half days, I would rather work 6 days a week and have more break, more downtime than like I was talking to someone else who was saying they're like, oh, I love a good 4 day work week and I just jam it all in. And I would be spent if I did that.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah. I mean,
have it
I
broken
think
up.
like I give myself Mondays off. That's where I
Yeah.
kind of have all of my appointments and things that I want to do for me. And then, maybe a Wednesday or a Thursday might be a little half quiet, but the rest, and I work the odd Saturday just to kind of get them all done and looked after. But yeah, it can be a real challenge. And I think the other thing that you mentioned, which is really interesting, is when you like to read.
Yes.
I love to read.
Yes.
Um, but it takes practice.
Yes.
So like I know with my life coaching clients, I'll be like, do you like to read? Yeah, I do. Well, then here's some good sources, like resources for you to help you. But it takes practice to slow down long enough, let your eyes focus on the words, which in today's day and age, with everything so quick and on our phones, it's so challenging. So yeah, when I get out of the rhythm of reading, it takes a little bit more of an effort for me to get back into it, but I
Yeah.
do love it. It's very soothing.
I adore it. And it's so interesting for me. Like if I'm watching a television show, I am doing something else at the same time. I'm playing on my phone. I'm doing work. I'm cooking. Like if I have TV on, I'm doing something else at the same time. Where if I'm reading, I don't check my phone. I don't need something else. Like I'm just involved in whatever it is that I'm reading. So for me, coming back to that has been very therapeutic of like, oh, I can do one task. I can let my brain just focus on this one thing. And it's just been it's been very restful for my brain and for my body to sit and just have one thing on the go instead of
Absolutely. And plus, it's good for relationships.
yes. Yes.
There's that whole connection to people thing that's really important in life.
Well, and for all of my clients, I discovered the world of fantasy romance. And I know it's a whole new concept for me. I'm pumped about it. So I have made most of my clients read the book called Fourth Wing. But the thing that has been so fun is I had a few clients who were like having a really hard winter, like just like they were down, they were exhausted, and they just got this new breath of life in. It's like Harry Potter for adults. And like it was so fun to watch like adults read fairy tales and to have them like feel like they were out of their rut. So like I'll read anything, but like just yeah, this whole new genre that I've discovered that I didn't know existed. And to have adults talk about fairy tales and to be excited about dragons and even just like in some of the books, the way like physical fitness is talked about in terms of like training and like getting stronger. And it's just been so fun talking to people about it and having them pumped about something like that. It's been really refreshing.
It can literally open up a whole new world.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
I read everything and like fiction, nonfiction, but it's just been really fun to have people escape their reality a little bit.
Very cool. I might try one of those.
Oh,
I usually end up in the business or leadership or
same.
well-being section, but I think
A
maybe I
whole
need
new
to
world.
venture out. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Whole new world. Didn't know existed. So what are some of the common themes or areas in which you have people seek advice from you? What are some of the things that as a life coach, are there common themes people are coming to you with that you found, or is it fairly up in the air?
It's interesting because so my life coaching business is called Equestrian Elements Life Coaching. So I chose a niche that I know very well. So that was easy for me. But it's funny, a lot of my clients don't really want or need anything directly affecting their time in the show ring or their time on the horse. It's interesting. Like I've had some clients that wanted to start a new job, like or change their vocation or start a new business, or they've started the business but they want like a fresh surge of like ideas or interactions or that kind of thing. People helping with organization, needing help with that, or just being accountable, having someone to be accountable to in a positive way.
Yeah.
So I find that being a life coach then is more or less like being a sounding board, providing ideas and suggestions and resources that can help people stay on track. Because you and I know, and everybody else listening to this who's, kind of coaching themselves along the way, sometimes it can be really challenging and you either get a little down or you get off track, you're unorganized. And sometimes you just need that person to say, hey, how about this, or this? And when you get one of those things done, reach out to me, let me know, and then we can reassess that and see where that goes. Like I have a life coach, and he and I chat monthly. And if I need something or a little kick in the butt, I'll like, hey, Rod, and then he's right there. So I found it has been really handy for, let's say, 4 years, COVID. I started working with him via the whole COVID experience.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's I don't know what to say about it as far as it's very inspiring. I find it very inspiring. I love working with the people. After like a phone call, I'm just pumped, and and I'm happy that they're happy and excited about making changes or developments in their life.
And like I not in the same capacity, but I just know in talking with my clients about things that they're invested in, things that they're exciting in, it's contagious to have that thrill, that excitement, and wanting to watch them do well. It's so cool to be along for the ride in that.
Yes,
cool.
It is. That's the best part.
Yeah. So on kind of the note of working in business and with horses, in our Equestrians in Biz meeting for May coming up this week, one of the things that we're discussing is imposter syndrome. What has been your experience throughout your many roles in the horse world with imposter syndrome?
Well, yeah, I think as I was pondering this question, I think it comes down to how confident someone is.
Mhm.
And I think it comes down to the experience that you have, and then maybe how you choose to translate that experience into a working action within your business, right? So, yeah, like when I first started massaging, there was this, okay, you're who and you do what kind of thing. So there was that sense of, okay, well, I kind of have to prove myself, or I have to really show people what I can do and everything. And then, yeah, I don't know. I think, honestly, I don't think you need to get into your head that much about it.
Mhm.
Right. So, like, because imposter syndrome sounds so official,
Yes.
it sounds like, whoa, I have imposter syndrome. It's like, you know what? Just let it go. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to say things that make you sound a little goofy sometimes, or you might slip up and, forget something or whatever it's going to be. But that's how we learn through this. So, like even with the coaching, after 20 years of experience massaging, when I got into the life coaching, I'm like, as much as I love this, I'm like, okay, now I'm a life coach. Who says I can be a life coach? Well, a lot of my experience and life experience I can bring to that, right? So it's just kind of coaching myself through it. But yeah, I don't know. I think the biggest part is just learn from your experiences, get as many experiences as you can, and then just do it. I hate to sound so simple about it, but don't spend so much time thinking about your imposter syndrome. Just do what you want to do and learn while you're doing it. Does that make it
I love
sound way
it.
too easy?
No, but I think from my experience in talking to people with imposter syndrome, like my advice to them usually ends up being like, if you, and again, this kind of sounds harsh, but like just stay in your lane, have trust in what you know, what you feel, learn the things that you need to learn. But I find people who truly feel like they are an imposter, they're trying to do too many things. They have too many eggs in too many different baskets where like you're really good at what you're good at. Run with it. You don't have to try and do this and this too. Like you're good
Yeah.
where you're good, and run with it. And I think like I've definitely been at a barn where I have immense respect for the coach that they have in their location. I'm like, what could I possibly have to offer these riders that their coach doesn't have to offer? So then I was like, she has them covered on horseback. What can I do with them from a fitness standpoint that will aid in what she's trying to get them to do on the horse? Because I'm not going to top her as a riding coach. She's incredible. She doesn't miss a thing. So for me, I was going in being like, what do I have to offer them?
Right.
I have my like equestrian fitness background where I can give them things to do off the horse that will help them with the things that she wants them to do on the horse. So for me, I was like, just fall back on what I know to be true and where I know I'm really good at this and I can offer this. And there are a few things I found that I could offer them on the horse as well. But like I helped my confidence being like, that stuff like backwards and forwards. You know how to help someone with their body off of the horse, leave the horse stuff to her. But so I totally I know that feeling.
Yeah,
But yeah.
exactly. And well, and I feel like what we talked about earlier is that you can't be everything to everybody,
Yes.
first of all. And then I really liked what you said, Megan, regarding um, all the tools. I get it. We need different tools, but you can have too many tools in your toolbox, and
Yeah.
then you don't become um, a specific person. You're not a specialized, you're
Yeah.
more generalized. So it almost works against people. And I say this with all the love and respect. I understand why they go out and get more certifications on this and certifications on that. And then they say, hey, this is what I offer. But if you're not secure enough in the one thing that started it all and that you're most passionate about, you're spreading your energy around and you're just thinning things out.
100.
So it's so funny because all these years I get people saying, can you massage my dog? And be like, I love dogs, but I only describe it as this. As an artist, massaging dogs is not my canvas of choice.
Yep.
It's like I get my hands on a dog and I'm like, I don't really know what to do with this, but
Yeah.
a horse and my hands and my elbows, then I'm good, right? I could do with my eyes closed. So yeah, you just kind of have to focus on one thing, really get confident in that, and then let's see what unfolds in front of you.
Yes. I love what you said about the too many tools. Something I can relate that to is my husband's been really busy. I'm not handy. I've never had to be because he is. But on one of my pieces of equipment, I was trying to update something. So I needed to unscrew something and rescrew it. So I'm going through his million screwdrivers, all of his fancy tools. I was getting so frustrated because I couldn't figure out what I needed. I needed an Allen key. Just a plain regular, none of its fancy screwdrivers. I just needed an Allen key. But I was like super overthinking this task, thinking I needed one of these fancy tools and
Yeah.
I needed an Allen key. I had that on my desk. It's yeah, it doesn't.
That is the best metaphor ever. Yes, good one.
Just an Allen key, regular Allen key.
That's funny.
So I know we were chatting beforehand. You had said kind of my last two questions. You weren't sure what direction you wanted to go with, but what are some of the positive changes that you've witnessed in the horse industry?
Well, so putting on my REMT hat for the
Yes.
moment, I would say that yes, the horse industry is more open to complementary therapies. I don't want to use what's the other word? The not complementary. The reason why I don't like it, the word is probably why I can't remember it right now. But yeah, it's like the so the horse world's more open to that. Everybody understands that there are different things here and there that you can use to help your horse. So that's wonderful. I'm grateful for that. And then I think the other part is, sorry, and just to add to that is that because the clients are more open, I just find I'm blessed with wonderful clients. Kind of like what we touched about before is if you're open to it, they will start to show up. I proudly say, I've said this for years, I don't work for a single jerk. And if one sort of enters my universe, it's gone. That person's gone quite quickly. And I just kind of trust, when people show up, they're meant to be with me as my clients. So yeah, every day is great for me that way. I absolutely love it. And then the other thing that I think I would say that has really come to my attention over the past, I don't know, 3-4 years, and maybe partially because of COVID. Who knows? Maybe COVID did something kind of good here, where there seems to be more community between the different riders, the different barns, the different students. It's not so much I'm in camp A and you're in camp B, and we can't really talk or be friends or advise each other. It's definitely changed. I find that a lot of the trainers whose barns that I go to, they'll be like, oh, yeah, I was talking to so-and-so and we were sitting, and I'm like, that's awesome because you can help each other. You can help each other learn. And so I think that's one of the things that I could say after, I was thinking about it a little bit more, that, yeah, I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. It's fun for me. One of the barns I was at, I had 3 riders. There was 4 different horses, and I saw each rider in different horses, but I saw them in different tack. They had Western and English tack, and some of them jump, some of them also do dressage. Like, it was really cool to see all that come together. And the barn that I'm at too, we're not a specific discipline. It's, you love your horse, you want to come ride, you're welcome here. So I do think that's a really nice point that I've also seen is it's not just, oh, you do that, you ride there. It's you love horses. That's
Yes.
great.
Yes. And I don't know if it's because of the nature of the horse boarding world, like where people board their horses, but there seems to be a lot more barns where it is multidisciplinary.
Yeah, which is really
And
fun. I've
yeah,
learned a lot. My barn owner rides Western, and I'm very naive to the Western world. I grew up very much in the English world, and it's been really fun to learn some of the different cueing and techniques where I'm like, I think that would really work well for me. And like we can learn things from everyone. So yeah, fun.
exactly.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, good. We found a couple of good
There
ones
you go.
there.
I was gonna say, I was like, that was good. And then what are some of the areas in the horse world you think we need to continue to improve on?
Well, I tend to ask this every once in a while of some of my guests on my podcast, and it's I'd have to say too, just having been in it for long enough and almost, gosh, I hate talking like this because it just makes me sound like from one generation into another,
Yeah.
but it's my biggest concern is it becoming unattainable
Mhm.
for younger riders. It's like we're pricing people out of the sport, out of, it's crazy. And there's so much like you see some of these higher, like Ontario Equestrian or Equestrian Canada trying to start these foundation route, experiences and programs and developing riders. It's so important. But then, and that's great. But then I think, well, what about those little up and down lesson barns for
Yeah.
those little kids that all of a sudden, little guy or little girl is they're 12, 13 years old and they have a talent. And now all of a sudden, mom and dad have to mortgage the house to be able to get them into a program. And I don't know if it's because it's generally what's happening or if there are some of these possible programs out there that see it as a bit of a cash cow.
Yep.
It's like, come, bring your little one here and we'll, direct him or her and they'll be, and it's like, wow, it's such a huge commitment. And not that commitment is a bad thing. My goodness. I'm one of its biggest, let's
Yeah.
be committed, but I don't know. There's just something about that I think we just kind of need to almost step back. It's that saying that what is old is new again.
Yes.
If we can sort of peel back the layers and let things start to happen a little bit more grassroots, that's the
Yeah.
word I'm looking for. Yeah. What about you? What do you think?
I'm gonna play off of that too, because just thinking like I hated showing. I would not sleep the night before. I would puke the morning. I never had a good experience, but it was really hard for my parents to find a barn that would take me for lessons with no intent of showing. And I'm sure I think there's more now. I'm more aware of more of them now, but when I was a kid, that was really hard. So I do wonder how many like start off in lesson barns that are for children, but then if you want to continue, you're expected to compete, which, and again, like you said, there's nothing wrong with commitment and goals and working towards something, but it's not my path.
Well, and like you said, it's a lot of pressure too.
Yeah.
So these little ones, they start, at whatever age they start feeling that, and it's like, that's not necessarily healthy either. It's then that gets us into a whole other conversation of mental health, etc. But
And
yeah,
avoidance of pressure.
exactly. Yeah, and there goes that whole you got to be uncomfortable to have any
Yep.
kind of growth. So we've just found ourselves in a vicious circle, Megan.
Yeah. Yeah. But I know a client of mine, we were again just talking about inflation everywhere, but yeah, oh, like the joy of owning a horse is now, yeah, like, are you taking out another mortgage?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know how we fix that one. So
I know. Yeah. And I think back when I started the massaging, um, so yeah, quite a while ago where I'm trying to think back to where the industry was then, but someone very close to me with love in her heart told me, well, you're going to be a luxury for a luxury. And I'm kind of like, okay, that made me sit back. So that was one of those hard things.
yes,
Right? I needed to hear that because
Yep.
at that point in time, or depending on what route I took and how I dealt with being an entrepreneur, that and like a solopreneur, that could have dictated how I would have responded.
Yep.
But me, like, I've said, like, fastest way to get me to do something is to tell me that I can't. So I knew that there were people who loved me and wanted to see me succeed, but also had this in their mind. They're like, oh, I don't know. But I'm like, let's think about this a little bit. And yes, and honestly, again, knock on wood, I've been very, very fortunate and very blessed. Um, can I just add one thing?
Thank you.
When I was preparing for this conversation, something popped into my head, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate part of our conversation, but the whole world of entrepreneurship, it's kind of trendy, don't you think?
Oh, yes. And
Okay.
so it irks me sometimes,
Yep.
like who considers themselves an entrepreneur. Not that I have a stake in this, but I just look at, for me, all of the hats that I wear, all of the things that I've had to figure out. And like, I'm so grateful. I have tons of support. I have lots of people I can bounce ideas off of, but at the end of the day, it's me and my time. And yes, I think it's fascinating to me who else has also considered themselves an entrepreneur, and not that they don't work hard, but
Yep.
if you have someone else who takes the fall if things don't go well, I don't personally consider you an entrepreneur then,
Yeah.
because if I can't work, I don't get paid.
Yeah.
And it's like there are other entrepreneurs where they might have a different system set up if you're making your own clothing or something like that and you're still able to do that. But for me personally, well, I worked from my hospital room during COVID, because if I
Yes, you
didn't work,
did.
I didn't get paid. And
Yes.
I had lots
Yeah.
of support, lots of help, very grateful that clients were able to do that. But it's, yeah, they're in my world, entrepreneurship also comes with an element of risk. And
Yes.
it, like some of the individuals calling themselves entrepreneur don't necessarily have that risk factor. There's a fall guy. And
Well, I totally agree. And that's why, and it wasn't until I was, preparing to come on here to talk, and that sort of came to my mind. It's like, this is a trendy word.
yeah,
It's become the fashionable thing to say that you are as an entrepreneur. So kind of along the line of what you just said, I'm like, no, how about you work hard? Be a hard worker and save the label that sounds pretty
yes,
for something when you want to be pretty. I don't know I don't know how to put that any other way, but yeah, you got to get down and dirty sometimes. You just got to do it. And that's one of the things I will say to you, my girl, sister here, is that I had so much respect for you after our podcast episode.
oh, thank you.
Finding out more about you and what you've done and how you've fought back and, living the life that you wanted and all this kind of stuff. Kudos to you. So yes, I think you're in a perfect position to talk about what you speak.
Well, thank you. It's taken, talking about imposter syndrome, it's taken several years for me to come to I've always kind of looked like, what do I have to offer to talk about things? I'm like, I think I might actually have a fair amount. And it's so icky for me to say that, because even just saying that, I'm like, oh, tooting your own horn, aren't you? But I'm like, no, but like, I pardon my French, there will be swearing on this podcast, but like, I've been through some shit, and
Yes.
I've learned some really hard lessons the hard way, as have you. Anyone who has run a business, multiple businesses for as long as you have, you've run through some shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you figure out how to come out the other way. And I do think it's so nice that you are willing to share those experiences with other people to either help them not have to necessarily go through it as hard, or just to have a different appreciation for yeah, it's
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I do find like a lot of the time when I'm working with my clients, the coaching clients is, if I can share them something or share something with them, sorry, that can kind of help them either go into it with their eyes a little wider, a little bit more prepared, then I know I've done my job. and that if they hit a road bump, I'm there to help them and give them some guidance and some grounding if necessary. But yeah, it is really challenging. And I think a lot of this has to do with the blueprint that we were prepared for in the first place,
Yes.
right? Because how you deal with any life challenge is based on who you were and how you became who you are.
Yeah.
So it's getting a little deep, but that's what it's all about.
Just keep going.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Just keep swimming.
Yes.
We'll quote Dorian there to finish. But but
Awesome.
there's a element of truth to that.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Awesome. Any final closing thoughts, Tracey?
I don't think so. I've really enjoyed this. This
I
is a
always
lot of
enjoy talking
fun.
to you. It's so
Oh,
fun.
oh, thank you. Thank you. I love the equestrian biz mixer that you did and getting a chance to put my life coaching hat on and speak in front of your group. I'm putting together a speaking event for my yeah, so you inspired me, Megan. So
I love that. I love that.
yes, thank you. So yes, I'm planning ahead probably about a year from now, sort of giving myself some time there, but yeah, I don't know. I just really enjoy sharing and, helping people. So, and I think what you're doing here is one of those steps. And it's like, that's what I love about my podcast, if I can say that, is it's
Me too.
about meaningful conversation, something that it doesn't matter, what world you're from, whether it be the Western world or the hunter jumper or vaulting or whatever it is, there's always something to be learned from each other.
Always. Oh, I love that.
That's a good place to end.
I was gonna say that. That's perfect. Couldn't have planned it better myself.
Awesome.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Tracey.
Oh, you're welcome, Megan. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you have great success.
Thank you. Thank you.